Hello and welcome. This video will introduce you to data mining. What is data mining? According to Gartner Group, it is the process of discovering meaningful new correlations, patterns, and trends by sifting through large amounts of data. According to Hand, it is the analysis of observational datasets to find unsuspected relationships and summarize data in novel ways. Defined by Kapana, data mining is an interdisciplinary field bringing together techniques from machine learning, pattern recognition, statistics, databases, and visualization. Adapted from Berry and Lindoff, it is the exploration and analysis of large quantities of data in order to discover previously unknown, meaningful, and actionable patterns and rules. In general, data mining is a computational process of discovering patterns in large datasets involving methods at the intersections of artificial intelligence, machine learning, statistics, and database systems. Now let's talk about the cross-industry standard process for data mining. The process has been adopted by many industries. It includes 6 phases that describe the data mining or data science life cycle, and it helps plan, organize, and implement projects. There are 6 phases as we can see in the figure, including business understanding, data preparation, modeling, evaluation, and deployment. The business understanding phase focuses on understanding the objectives and requirements of the project. The following are the 4 tasks in this phase. The first task is to determine the business objectives. You should first thoroughly understand from the business perspective what the customer really wants to accomplish, and then from there define business success criteria. Then next, you would assess situation. You would determine resources, availability, project requirements, assess the risk and contingencies, and from there conduct a cost-benefit analysis. The next task is to determine the goals. In addition to defining the business objectives, you should also define what success looks like from a technical perspective. And finally, the last task is to produce a project plan. You will select technologies and tools and define detailed plans for each project phase. Establishing a strong business understanding is like building the foundation of a house, so it is very essential. The next phase is data understanding. It drives the focus to identify, collect, and analyze the data sets that help you accomplish the project goals. There are 4 tasks. The first task is to collect initial data. You would acquire the necessary data and load the data into your analysis tool or your analytic environment. Could be on the cloud. And then you would describe data. You would examine the data and document its properties such as data types, number of records, coding schemes such as using M and F to represent male and female, or just 1 or 0. You would then explore data. You would dig deeper into the data via queries, tables, charts, and other visualization tools to identify relationships among data. You would verify the data quality, how clean or dirty is the data, and then document any quality issues. The next phase is data preparation. The common rule of thumb is that 80% of the project is data preparation. This phase is referred as data manging, that prepares the final data sets for modeling. There are 5 tasks. The first task is to select data. You would determine which datasets will be used and document reasons for inclusion or exclusion of the data. You will then clean data. Basically, what you do is to correct data, impute missing data, or remove erroneous value. This usually is the lengthiest task, and typically remember, if you have garbage in, you have garbage out. You would then construct data. Basically, you would derive new attributes or transform existing attributes. For example, you derive body mass index from height and weight, or from length and width to calculate the area. Then from there, you integrate data. In this task, basically you create new data sets by combining data from multiple sources. You would reformat data if needed. For example, converting string values into numeric values so that we can perform mathematical operations. Phase 4 is modeling. This phase is considered as the most exciting, but also the shortest phase of the project. In this phase, you build and assess various models based on several different modeling techniques. There are 4 tasks. The first task is to select modeling techniques. You would determine which algorithms to try. For example, with a classification problem, you may select logistic regression or neural networks. You would generate test design. Basically, it is about describing the criteria for the goodness of a model, such as mean absolute error, mean square error, and etc. And defining the data on which the criteria will be tested. From there, you would build models. You would train, validate, and test models. The result would be parameter settings that produce the best results, as well as the actual models, and the description of the model results, including the performance and data issues that occurred during the execution of the model and exploration of results. And eventually, you assess models. Typically, you would build several models together at the same time. So later on, you can compare one against each other, and you can select final models for deployment. Phase number 5 is evaluation. This phase focuses on technical model assessment. It looks at which model best meets the business and what to do next. There are 3 tasks. The first task is to evaluate results. You would evaluate results of your efforts using the business success criteria. You would compile a list of approved models for inclusion in the final report. And the list here should include models that satisfy both the determining and the business goals. And then reviews process. You would review the work accomplished. Was anything overlooked? Were all the steps properly executed? And what were the failures or mistakes of the phase? How can they be avoided next time? And you summarize findings and correct anything if necessary. And from there, determine the next steps based on the previous 3 tasks. You would determine whether to proceed with deployment or iterate further, or just initiate a new project. The final phase is deployment. Depending on the requirements, the deployment phase can be as simple as generating a report, or could be deploying a model on the cloud accessible via an API. The final phase has 4 tasks. The first is to plan deployment. You would develop and document a plan for deploying the model. You would plan monitoring and maintenance. Develop a thorough monitoring and maintenance plan To avoid issues during the operational phase of the model, you would produce final reports and review the project. In reviewing the project, you would conduct a project retrospective about what went well, what could have been better, and how to improve in the future.